And welcome to tonight's live. If you are watching this after it's already been streamed, we are going to be talking a lot about the video I just posted yesterday on Easter. So I would recommend go watch that video first. It's about 10 minutes and then come back to this video. However, if you are here while it is live, thank you for joining us. We are going to be going in depth on the conspiracies that I went over, again, like I was saying, regarding Royal Bloodlines within the Reptilian shapeshifters. We're going to be talking about the Anunnaki. We're going to be talking about the Bible in regards to the Nephilim, which are mentioned throughout the Bible, or not throughout the Bible, actually. Very, very little in the modern Bible, the King James edition, but we'll go ahead and talk about how there's a more elaborate story about the Nephilim in a book that was taken out of the Bible. So I'm excited to see Eddie too, Winter Spring Phil. He's a rad dude. So on that note, I do have my good friend, very talented musician, all around interesting dude, Eddie Booze, who is going to be joining us tonight. He as of right now, he might be the person that I have kept in contact with that I've known the longest in life, if that even makes any sense. Because I've known certain people, let's say I met when I was 5 years old, but I haven't talked to them in maybe a decade, if not longer. But I've known Eddie coming up on 20 years, and obviously we're talking tonight, so it's we've been able to remain somewhat current, if not very current. So, again, for you guys that are here, if you've already seen the last video I just posted, we will be going more in depth for those of you that are watching this as it is just already posted on the YouTube channel. Maybe go check out that video first. It will be in the link. And yeah, so without further ado, what I would like to do here is go ahead and have Eddie hop on, and we can do some conspiracy talking. But yeah, hey everybody that's live with us so far, appreciate you joining us. And without further ado, let's get Eddie on the
Hey,
what's up? What's up, dude?
How you doing?
I'm good, dude. How's everything?
Good, good. Let me see if I can fix that. The focus there kind of went behind me. Let me see.
It sounds like you possibly could turn your mic up just a little bit. And then for those watching live, if you notice anything regarding sound or anything, make sure to speak up if possible, just so we know.
I think that's better.
Dude, it's looking crispy, bro. What is that, like a 5K fucking Panasonic,
Nah, it's what's like a Sony NEX 100. Great camera. All right, let me see. Does that help?
Yeah, dude.
How about that audio-wise? Is that better?
I would say on my end, so just real quick, on the audio side of things, there's the microphone. It says mute underneath it, and then it has an arrow where you can adjust the settings.
Yep.
If you're rocking headphones, make sure to turn off the echo cancellation, and then just make sure the input and output are all set.
Yep.
And
everything's good. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I would just say maybe a little bit louder.
I actually got it all the way up there. Let me turn it up on my input here. How about that?
It sounds good, bro. It sounds good. I guess I just got bad hearing, so maybe it's in due to that.
I just want to make sure it's at least as loud enough for everyone else to hear,
Yeah, well, if anybody, okay, cool. We're getting people telling us that it sounds great. It sounds awesome.
Cool.
So now you sound crisp. You sound crispy, dude. But yeah, man. So just to give everybody a little bit of background as far as how Eddie and I know each other. I grew up in Long Beach. Eddie grew up in pretty much the same area, and he was in bands, and they would play at parties. And growing up, I would go to these parties. The bands he was in, always incredible. And then we just kept in touch, throughout life. And he's an awesome musician. I definitely recommend you go and checking out his channel. He has covers of almost any song you could think of. There's not many songs you could put his name next to and you won't have a cool cover of. But also original music. Some of my favorites, some of your original, the guitar stuff. I mean, awesome musician all around, but definitely musician-wise, dude, one of the best for sure that I know, man. But yeah, is there anything else you'd like to kind of just let the people know about yourself, dude? Any other kind of intros?
I appreciate the warm welcome, man. I do write music for film and television. You can go check out my website. It's eddiebooze.com. And that's, got a lot of the stuff on it. I do live streams every Thursday night at 7 o'clock. I do a radio stream. It's all audio. I show a lot of independent music. And at 8 o'clock, I do a live stream where I play music. So come check out the stuff if you guys enjoy.
Dope, dude. And then I saw something you recently posted. I don't know if it's already live, if you're doing it, but it seemed as though just purely radio. Is that one of the things that you just mentioned?
Yes, that's the thing. It's every Thursday night at 7 o'clock, and I just play all indie artists, and it's been really fun actually. I did the first episode last Thursday, and a ton of people watched. A ton of people, were engaging, live, and the artists were awesome. I had to re-upload the episode though, but yeah, man, it started off really well. So hopefully, I'm gonna continue every Thursday at 7, and there's a bunch of indie artists I've been, talking to lately. So, who are really, really fantastic artists. So I'm really excited to show, everybody out there. So it's really cool because where do you go for new music nowadays? You know what I mean? Like that's what
I was thinking, man. I guess because what other platform is available that you can just listen to randomized music that. I mean, doesn't just stick to one. I guess you could do a Pandora Humongous Shuffle, but it's gonna eventually be repetitive,
Yeah, and you're gonna get stuff in that you're gonna get stuff. I mean, this is a show every week that introduces you to like brand new artists, a bunch of stuff that's just unheard. You know what I mean? So I think that's one of the best things about it is it's just new music. It's just a bunch of new artists that a lot of people haven't heard. Maybe if you're from that specific area, you know what I mean? Some of these bands are fairly regionally large, but haven't really broke through to like the next level yet, and things like that. So I'm really stoked about it actually. It's been really fun actually. It kicked off really well. I asked a bunch of artists and they were all like, "Hell yeah, I want to be a part of that." And everybody just started like flooding me with their music, and a bunch of people started like contacting me on IG saying, "Hey, we saw this artist was a thing on your channel." So it's just kind of growing on its own, pretty quickly. And it's as a musician, like, where, just like you were saying, like, where are those avenues for like independent artists to have their stuff played? You know what I mean? Like, and I don't have too many, subscribers on my channel. My channel's about 13,000, but like, you know what I mean? Just like doing something like that and like getting it out there and like putting it out there and starting doing something, you got to start somewhere. You know what I'm saying? So, just getting these bands out there is super fun, and everybody seems to be super supportive of it. So, I mean, I'm just going to keep doing it.
It's such a dope idea, dude, because I almost equate it to these days we have Netflix, we have Hulu. I mean, we have an app for every channel, for every subject in the world has its own app, and it's we have too many options. So we get into this like this itis of just sitting there. I mean, Netflix even has a LOL face, and it says can't figure out what to watch. Just watch something random, almost because they even know, dude, we got too many options. And just like radio these days, obviously, I would say sucks for the most part. The people have universal access to, the extraterrestrial radio. And there's not, like you're saying, there's not a lot of avenues just for really dope new bands that doesn't necessarily stay pigeonholed into a genre. So it's almost like people are starting to miss cable. It's like I kind of miss scrolling through stations, and I kind of miss watching a show and then having another show come on after that I wasn't completely aware of. And like I miss waiting a week to see another episode of it. And it's almost like we're going back. My buddy made a joke to me one time that at one point all these apps will converge and they'll all buy into each other and just call it cable again. It's like, and it'll be half the price, dude, because it's like $800 right now if you want to have all the networks. It's ridiculous. Awesome. But nah, man, you're giving people like it's almost the analog. It's like back to the basics of just. There used to be public networks that would have at 1 a.m. a show that would play 30 minutes of music, or on K-Rock there was like Rodney on the Rock.
Exactly.
And maybe there still is, and I'm just ignorant because I'm not searching in those arenas. But
I guess like Frosty, Heidi, and Frank. I don't know if it's Frosty, Heidi, and Frank anymore, or if it's like it's a different trio, or if it's only the duo anymore. But I know they do the that like locals thing, Stay or Go. And they play but they like do like one band a day. So this is literally all genres. This is like on the first episode I played singer-songwriter, reggae, jazz. I did an instrumental jazz tune, hip-hop, like punk rock, hard rock. Like it literally spanned, and everybody out there was just like, you know what? It's funny because like everything is so genre-based nowadays. Like you go somewhere and it's like K-Rock plays rock, and KLOS plays classic rock. Everything has like their own little niche, but I like there's something to be said for like growing up when we grew up in like the 80s and 90s before the internet was prevalent, because something that came along with that was that we were exposed to all kinds of different genres of music, like because there wasn't that much to listen to. And everything that was out had to be like what we call commercially viable to even get to the ears of the public, to get to the eyes of the public as movies or whatever, as music to get to our ears. Like it had to be really good, which meant it was commercially viable enough to be sold to the public. So all the hip hop that was out, like, NWA and, and like, Dog Pound and Ice Cube and stuff like that. And then like over to like rock, you know what I mean? Where we had like, bands like, Nirvana and Soundgarden and things like that, which were amazing bands, like really, really great bands. But everything was so top notch, including movies and everything like that. In the 80s and 90s, we got that, but we didn't have avenues for all this independent stuff. There was nowhere you could go for like independent music, but it was all good. So like as a symptom of that, I feel like people like you and I grew up in an era where we were almost forced to be able to appreciate all types of genres of music. So this show, which plays all genres, kind of caters to that type of thing where when you ask somebody what kind of music do you listen to, and they give you the overwhelmingly tiring answer, as I like to put it, of, oh, I listen to everything. Everybody says that, right? But everybody does actually listen to everything. So why pigeonhole an indie radio show into one genre?
And literally. I think that just to make life easier and to make interaction smoother and more productive in the future for everybody that's watching, I think the question is, what is a song that currently has like your interest peaked? Like, what is the last song that you found that piqued your interest or that had something new that you loved? Because that takes away the whole. Because like if you just, it's like, what are you hungry for? It's like, well, fuck,
yes.
It's so hard to decide what you want to eat. It's kind of the same with music because, like you're saying, it's not a douche answer to say I listen to everything. I mean, more than likely, most people don't hate any genre of music. They're just not exposed to it enough to appreciate it, maybe, So
right,
it's like.
But that's what I'm saying is most people actually, when they say that, they genuinely mean it. That's the point. It's like they genuinely mean it because they actually do like everything. So it's like, why pigeonhole yourself into like one genre? You know what I'm saying? As like a show or a channel or something like that. No, you're absolutely right, bro. Like,
just to kind of start segueing, dude. Because I would say growing up, as far as my musical taste, the first CD I ever bought, I think I bought Green Day Dookie and Offspring Smash. And then I saw that Offspring had another album called Ignition. And I was like in 5th or 6th grade,
Okay.
But the album started off with the dude just saying fuck like 5 times, and it freaked my mom and dad out because I was playing it all loud, dude. And like, but down the line, I got in high school, I got like really into punk rock music, and I'm like, I heard, even when I was really young, Bad Religion, Suffer, and American Jesus, and it just blew my mind because if you only watch what's readily available to you and put out by mainstream media, there's a pretty clear narrative, and you don't notice it though until you watch something outside of that realm, Sure. And for me, punk rock music made me view politics in a different way. It gets you into like, documentaries like Zeitgeist and Loose Change and all these things, because you never think, like, growing up, and I'm kind of bouncing everywhere, but growing up, going to a Catholic school and then meeting someone that didn't believe in Jesus, it was like, wait a second, like, not everybody believes in Jesus.
It's like a foreign concept, right?
It's a construct. And then so when someone says, yeah, man, the government might do things that aren't necessarily widely discussed or known or go against what they're perceiving it to be, it kind of blows your mind, and I think being exposed to punk rock music and like bands like NoFX and Pennywise, and those were like the main ones that I would say I listened to a lot. And then I would get the compilations like the Punk Rock Voter Tour was one of them, and then I think Fat Records had a line that they put out.
They had a ton of they had
there's
physical fatness and like all those Life in the Fat Lane and all those comps where they had all their Fat Records bands on them, Millencolin and No Use for a Name and Lagwagon and all them bands,
Oh yeah, dude. And
that
music,
those comps.
It's almost like that music masquerades itself as stupid, so only a certain person appreciates it. I don't know how to explain it, but it's from the outside looking in. You look at punk rock, it's some. I don't know. The people have like blue hair and they're wearing weird clothes and all this stuff, but it's almost like an inside joke because it's the most insightful, educated, like poetic music that, I mean, like the Descendants. There's so many bands where the lyrics just transcend the genre. It's
Absolutely.
just they've chosen this format, and I appreciate that because it really is what set me into a path of looking at things from a different perspective. It opened up my reality as I got into other kinds of music. You know, I always appreciate it. At least, you know, I had a punk rock phase, and I still listen to punk rock, but it did so much for me as far as how I view the world. And I wanted to see if you had kind of a similar experience, or where you kind of started getting into things that maybe are more conspiratory and questioning things.
Absolutely, bro. And you know, punk rock for me, like, oh, you're absolutely right about that. Punk rock was one of the first genres of music. I can remember, like, I would listen to Nirvana and Soundgarden and bands that I mentioned earlier, Pearl Jam and things like that when I was younger. And I can remember waking up one day and like listening to that kind of music and thinking, and I had this weird feeling like this isn't enough. And I really couldn't tell you why at the time. But then shortly after that, I found punk rock. I found bands like the Misfits and Social Distortion and Lagwagon and you know, NoFX and things like that. You know, and bands particularly, like you said, like the Descendants, All, NoFX, Bad Religion, you know what I mean? Like, these bands, like, had, like, an incredibly acute message that they were trying to get across. You know what I'm saying? And it wasn't like, they weren't trying to be overly poetic with their lyrics like, you know, bands like, you know, like alternative bands in the 90s were. And that was something I, like, not only the high energy of punk rock, but that they were literally coming across with a message, whether it was political or otherwise. There was something that I appreciated about that, and it was like, they're actually saying something here with this music, you know, and they actually, like, and these dudes mean what they say, and but I wouldn't necessarily say that kind of led me more down the conspiratorial, for being more open-minded to conspiratorial subjects. I would say, as far back as I can remember, I was pretty open to ideas, to you know, people with different ideas that, you know, were throwing things at. Okay, that's interesting, you know. But a really good friend of mine that I used to drink heavily with, like, every day when I was in my early 20s, he used to come over to my place, you know, and we used to just drink every night. But we would talk about, you know, he brought over a VHS of Bohemian Grove. From Alex Jones. Have you seen that?
Yeah, we're basically like the elite, the Bilderbergs and all of them. They do a bunch of weird ceremonies, and it could be looked at as they're sacrificing children, you know, or at least the facade is put on that they're replicating children's sacrifice or sacrificing of something, right?
Yeah. So there's like a giant like an owl, like a wooden owl, like out there, and that they I'm not sure if they worship or something like that, but then there's like this like mock sacrifice, I believe, where they like have some boat that crosses a river, and I'm not sure if they burn the boat or something like that, but it's supposed to be something along the lines of what you said. But yeah, man, like, when I saw that for the first time, I was like, so that was kind of my first like intro into like conspiracy theory, really, that I can really remember. You know what I mean? I was in my early 20s, and my buddy brought this video over, and I was like, what the fuck is this? I'm like, what the hell is this, dude? And it was so interesting to me. And then me and him, we would talk conspiracies, I mean, for the next few years, you know? I mean, on a fairly regular basis, you know what I mean? Almost to a tiring point, you know what I mean? Like, where it was just all we talked about, you know? It was definitely all he talked about, so, you know, but yeah, man, no, I was fairly open to it at a young age, really more exposed to it when I was in my early 20s. But have a very open mind as far as it goes, you know, as far as that goes, you know, for all of them, you know. So I'm really glad to be here talking to you about this. I've really enjoyed your channel.
Thank you, dude. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
You know, it's kind of crazy as we talk about early conspiracies and kind of what got us into certain things. Neither one of us mentioned aliens, and I can't imagine that neither one of us didn't think about aliens before this first conspiracy. But it's almost like, are aliens, do we consider that? Because the first alien experience, or the first thing that really, like, because I guess looking back at those alien abduction videos, those would, you know, scare me a little bit. And to be honest, dude, I'd be at church, you know. I had to go like an hour and a half, whatever Catholic churches services are, and I was younger. And I remember praying, I said, God, if aliens are real, Just have them abduct me for the next like hour and a half. If they're not real, then they won't abduct me, of course, But I remember being scared as shit the night before, and then in church be like, okay, I'm kind of curious, guy. Like, but it wasn't until I saw the interview with Bob Lazar when it put it more into the perspective of it's not just these crazy looking creatures coming from outer space. There's actually things happening in the United States that are, studying UFOs, and they have actual UFOs and things like that. But no, I guess looking back, just to be fair, it's probably aliens for most people. I think aliens is the first conspiracy. It's so like mainstreamed.
Bigfoot?
And like, I guess, Bigfoot.
Cryptids and aliens are probably from a young age.
Oh, no, just one second here.
Oh, you're good, brother. But yeah, no, I was saying cryptids and aliens from a young age.
Dude, we must be getting into something gnarly, dude. We're getting into something too gnarly, bro.
I know, dude. They're trying to shut it down, dude.
They're blacklighting me. But no, there's all kinds of them, dude. And I guess that those are all really good to lead us into the topic, the main topic, the meat and potatoes, man. We've gotten a nice serving of vegetables here. We're healthy.
Love it.
But in regards to the lizard people, I don't know, you're familiar. You said you weren't like too, a fluid in it or anything of that nature, but the main principle behind it is, and I talked about it in the video, that at one point there was a race of reptilian shapeshifters that ruled the planet. It was a known thing. It doesn't seem as though they were hidden because there was Native Americans that would tell stories of them. Sure. And about 5,000 years ago, there was a catastrophe. They went underground, and then they just started infiltrating society through being these shapeshifters, right? And I've heard about this theory a bunch, dude, for years and years and years, and it's always sounded the goofiest to me. It's always like, man, I don't know. There's certain conspiracy theories that it only takes about 3 sentences of someone talking about it, and I'm like, I'm fucking in,
Right.
like I'm down for 20 more videos about this. I'm going down a rabbit hole.
Right.
But I never saw a video about the lizard people that made me feel like, yeah, dude, I'm all in. Fuck yeah. So what I really wanted to do is try to bring attention to the fact that there's so many conspiracy theories that have underlying commonalities, and it's really just the same story told in a different way. And over time, I mean, I don't know. Who knows that 10,000 years ago it wasn't totally normal for lizard people to be walking around and things like Bigfoot, like you said, and aliens visited the planet on a regular basis. It's just we live through the lens of the current times, where that would seem fucking crazy if there was reptiles walking around, But
well, that's ingrained into us from when we were kids, from when we were young, is that anything that's not, socially deemed as, towing the line is conspiratorial or is false or bullshit. When I think you said in your last video that there's a little bit of truth, I think, in a lot of these things, So.
Yeah, and that's kind of always the goal. Like, the video, I try to summarize it the best I can and give people as much insight and context to motivate further research. Like, there's a lot more I could say, and we'll get into tonight.
Sure.
But if something strikes you as interesting, research it, because there's no way I could make one video and go into depth about all these things. It would take me, days and days and days to do it to where I felt was perfect, and gave you all the information out there. But the ultimate truth that I find in all these conspiracies is it is this power that be that's greater than us that in some way controls the population. And it takes so many different forms, and these could all be cautionary tales. I mean, we only get the telephone down version, but the lizard people, the overall conspiracy here is that there is this reptilian race that's on the planet currently. They're in charge of such secret societies like the Freemasons, the Illuminati, politicians. And one of the reasons I always thought this conspiracy was so goofy and like corny was the idea to me was, okay, so you're telling me that it's like lizards in human skin costumes. I mean, I couldn't get past just that. Sounds a little bit too much for me. But as I looked into it a little bit, it talked about how these reptilian shapeshifters use the ability to create vibration fields, and through vibrations that creates a illusion, basically, that humans see with our eyes, where they're always reptiles. It's just a matter of these vibration fields they're able to project around themselves to the human eye looks like other human beings. And that kind of struck me as interesting because I listened to, I believe it was Richard Dawkins or someone of pretty high stature talking about their ayahuasca trip. And they said that within the ayahuasca trip, there's not a whole lot that they went into detail about, like verbiage-wise. but the entity told them that everything that vibrates is fake. If it vibrates, it's fake. And then in my personal DMT experience, when I blasted off and, went to the moon and back, I was left on the notion that everything is fake. Who cares? And what I took from that is I'm worrying about shit too much. Who cares? I mean, if you could fix it, fix it. If you can't, you can't. Don't worry either or way. You know what I mean? You can't do much about it. So when I heard that, I thought, okay, I mean, that's kind of playing into the idea that we live in this universe that vibrations are really key. I mean, they talk about vibration being able to have had something to do with the pyramids because you can move large objects through vibration. But I thought that was very interesting, And so now these reptilians are controlling the planet. And whether or not it's reptilians doing this, I think it's a cautionary tale. And maybe in mythology, the reptiles and snakes and lizards and things of that nature have always just held some sort of a value, And that's where I find all these conspiracies to be so interesting, is because either someone with an elaborate creative mind made them up, or these are stories that have been passed down and we're just being fed the easiest ones to manipulate and the easiest ones to build some sort of arena around, like religion, for instance. Like it's a lot easier to put religion out there as the ultimate truth, and they use it however they want to. I mean, that's why the Bible's so edited and so watered down and all these things. But they couldn't control the narrative if it was that there's this secret race of people that are infiltrating secret societies. That would be a little bit more challenging. But I kind of rambled on a little bit there. But what are your thoughts, man? I mean, just as far as what I just said, if anything struck you as interesting, or
Well, yeah, I mean, all of it strikes me as interesting, But here's the thing. You said something in there that did, kind of trigger a question in my mind. So you said, it's either somebody made this up, it just came from the idea of some lunatic or whatever, or there is some truth to this, that it's been passed down from generations to generations, these stories. But it would seem, I mean, as far as I've done a little bit of research on this, and as far as I know, aren't there like stories from like multiple cultures, dating back through history about reptilians, and aren't there like artifacts and like paintings and things like that depict reptilians as well, like throughout history?
Yeah, I mean,
so if that's the case, how far back do you go to one guy? You know what I'm saying? And what I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like this kind of, it feels a little convoluted. You know what I mean? Like almost like, you know what I mean? Like every, like there's like all the ancient cultures in the had pyramids. You know what I'm saying? Like it's very similar. Like it just kind of rings like, I don't know. It gives a little bit of credence to the theory, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I guess I look at it kind of like, I look at it as if our planet, if we put it into like a metaphor, an analogy, I don't know how even to phrase it, but think about our planet in the solar system as a city or a continent on the Earth. Who knows that at one point the Earth wasn't a stomping ground, because the other theory I talk about in the video is the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki, they were from the 10th planet Nibiru. They put gold into their atmosphere and able to shield from the UV rays to protect themselves and to, preserve their planet and their skin and all that good stuff. And they were on the planet for thousands of years until they decided they were over it. They wiped out as much as they could. There were some survivors, and that's the whole Royal Bloodline concept in the Anunnaki, is that they're the ones that helped build the pyramids. They're the ones that gave the Sumerians enlightenment. Like you talk about old art that people have seen that have these depictions of reptiles. Like there's the pyramids of Teotihuacan. There's the Temple of the Serpents, where all around it is nothing but reptilian, heads and structures. And
right, exactly what. Yeah.
And we're going back at a time where it. So I guess one perspective is they attributed everything to a god. There was the god of corn, there was the god of everything, and maybe the lizards were just really representative of something to them. I'm not sure.
Well, you did mention.
I'm back.
You did mention.
But go ahead.
I said you did mention You did have some biblical references to the reptilians. Could you go into a little bit more detail about that?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, cutting out kind of made me lose the last train of thought. But as far as the biblical reference, so the biblical reference would be that the first thing that kind of struck me, because I wanted to have multiple theories that we can kind of tie into these royal bloodlines, was the fact that Satan or Lucifer in the book of the Garden of Eden appeared as a snake and persuaded Eve to eat this apple, the one that God told her, do whatever you want, just don't eat this apple. And upon eating that apple is when humans became ultra conscious, and all of a sudden they were ashamed of being naked. They realized their surroundings. They were afraid of getting attacked by these animals all of a sudden. And I always look at the Bible as, if you really look at it and you assume, okay, let's just say a lot of this could be real, a lot of this could be based on things that are somewhat true. It's a pretty dark book. There's a lot of the main story that everybody knows is about a guy that went around trying to prove that he was the son of God, or at least that was putting across the image that he was the son of God. Then he got crucified for it in a brutal way, and then he rose from the dead 3 days later. We romanticize it and we make it feel fluffy, but the Bible is a book of the Old Testament is about God putting plagues on the earth and flooding the earth and doing all of these things, and it's because of things like the Nephilim, which I touched on in the video. But the Nephilim were a time in our history when there was more than just human beings, and there was other creatures and things that were like hybrids, right? And the Nephilim were something of this nature, where they were fallen angels that lived on the planet, that were very huge. They lived thousands upon thousands of years, almost as if a lifespan meant nothing, and they started interbreeding with humans, and it created this bloodline that God didn't want on the planet. People of the flesh were meant to experience a very, modest 120 years. It was a totally different experience from these Nephilim, and that's what caused God to flood the planet out. So even if you look at it in the Bible, it doesn't say, and some Nephilim survived and they still reign on the planet, but the Bible does talk about how there's more evil on the earth than there is good, and that's why it's important to be devout in your faith and have these beliefs. So the Bible doesn't paint this all roses picture. It paints a picture that it could be all roses if you have faith, because the world is actually a pretty fucking dark and crazy place. There's the book of Revelations. The book of Enoch is actually where it goes really in depth about the Nephilim and talks about how they walked on the planet both before and after the flood. It briefly mentions it in Genesis, but there's a lot of things that have been taken out of the Bible because I think it almost makes it look a certain way to talk about giants and these things in the Bible, and they walk the earth this day, and that would seem kind of crazy, to the buckled down Catholics and Christians that read the Bible, I guess. But I look at the Bible as almost it does hold a lot of truths, and I've gotten myself into a lot of conspiracy theories that almost bring me back in a way to the Bible. And when a lot of people think about reading the Bible or anything of that nature, it boils down to a religion, where I don't pin a religion to the Bible. I look at the Bible like it's an acronym, right? It's the basic instructions before leaving Earth. There's a lot of metaphorical value to it. Do I think that everything in there happened exactly as is? No, I don't. But there's so many good lessons in it, and it's all the mindset that you read it with. If you read it with an open mindset and you just think about these are stories that were passed. This fucking little thing over here, my USB thing, but that's kind of from a biblical perspective. That's why it's hard for me to not acknowledge the Bible when I talk about conspiracies, because there's so many parallels. Even, like the lizard
Sure.
people, for instance, like the fact that Satan was a snake, the fact that there was this like half-breed humans on Earth that were destroyed, and who knows what they look like, but maybe they look kind of like lizards to someone at some point that actually saw them, and that's what they depicted them as in their stories. I'm not sure.
Right.
But there's an ultimate truth out there, and I think it all still boils down to there's something else on this planet that is either controlling us at large, or at one point there was. There's remnants of it, and people have taken over that power and just become master manipulators over each other, and there's no need for a superior race to do it anymore. Through technology and all these other tools they have these days, it's very easy to conquer and divide us. I mean, that's kind of my full-blown perspective on it, that I kind of look at it as.
Yeah, I agree. There's definitely something, I mean, you said in your video that, there's this overarching battle for, for our minds, so to speak, you know what I'm saying? And this essentially like battle between good and evil, and so, having that in mind, I think that if you just look at society today and you look at everything that's going on, I think it kind of, you take a step back and look at the macro, it almost seems that part is apparent. I mean, you can't, I wouldn't know where to start to like pinpoint and say like, yeah, like that's that or that's that. But no, I think that there's definitely forces that we don't see at work, trying to control and manipulate what we do, what we see, and where society goes from here as well.
Yeah, and that's a major reason actually why I brought up the whole triune brain hypothesis, which states that our brain is a very evolved organism, and at the base of it lies the R complex, which is our reptilian brain. And I think we've all at this point heard somebody reference someone using their lizard brain, or someone has a lizard brain. It's almost common knowledge at this point. And
that's a question I had for you. 5G. Okay, so you talk about like them trying to like use whatever resources they can to dumb us down, so we're only using our reptilian brains, things like that. So I was wondering like what you thought about like the advent of like 5G and like certain like things along those lines that might actually like inhibit that type of reptilian brain activity more, than not.
I think that in regards to
or things like that,
like
I'm not saying like necessarily that like particularly, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
but
like
whatever.
in regards to 5G, I guess I look at it more as it could potentially be dangerous to be passing through airwaves, and it's everywhere, and just like they do studies of if you hold a cell phone up to your head for a certain amount of time, the amount of radiation that can get to your brain. But as far as when I think about them appealing to your reptilian brain, it's almost keeping you bogged down and keeping you locked in, and it doesn't even have to involve, I guess 5G, it makes it easier for them, and it makes it faster for them to infiltrate you, because the faster the internet is, the faster they could use technologies and weaponize it against you, I guess. And also because maybe all these 5Gs need to be active for the point when everybody has chips in their bodies, or all the cars are, chip induced or electric. I mean, I'm really not sure, but I think in regards to appealing to our lizard brain, they do that by keeping us in this really primal state. Like we're the most advanced society has ever been, or we're at least advanced enough to be able to differentiate what is good and bad, or what is right and wrong,
Sure.
And it seems as though the majority of us would like to advance our civilization and evolve our human race. I mean, you have people that want to take us off the planet to Mars. You have people that, there's a multitude of people doing awesome things, right? That seem uplifting. Right. But in order to keep everything down, you have to keep the common individual, which is the most dangerous if they were to band together. Because you have to remember, we can overthrow the government if we really were to band together. If people band together as much as they do to fucking hate on something and really use that energy to figure out how to overthrow the government, we might be dangerous. That might be pretty dangerous. But as of right now, we fear
keeping us pitted against each other.
We fear the government, right? So to do things like keeping us bogged down with the just everyday struggles. It could be from, inflation making it so there's a lot of people right now hurting financially. And finances are like, I think the number one reason beyond adultery why people get divorced. It's one of the high reasons why older people commit suicide. I mean, finances are tied in so strong strongly to how we identify, how we how we experience real life to a degree. And it's just the constant bombardment of advertising, things like pornography, even, things that keep us in a mental state of just only thinking about purely the flesh. Like, you have all these advancements in this computer, brain that you have, whether it's computer based or not, I'm not sure, but the capabilities are just endless. And they want to keep you thinking about how to get laid next. If the girl or guy that you're sleeping with looks better than the girl or guy that someone else is sleeping with, do you have as much money as someone else has? Do you have as nice of a car as someone else has when you're driving down the street? It's like, how bad could they make you feel so you feel inadequate, so you have to lean towards something that they've created to make you feel better about yourself? Yep. When at the end of the day, it's like, this creation, it's up to us what we want to do with it. We need food, so food grows everywhere. Food walks around if you want to eat meat. We need water. 75% of the continent or the planet is water. Like, we have the essentials handled if we really want. Unfortunately, it's just all being controlled right now. Like, I even have a theory that, and I saw an article today that actually kind of heightened my sense of maybe it is kind of accurate. Is they don't want people to own land right now. That's why companies like Zillow and Redfin are buying up massive amounts of properties. And as far as any kind of properties, they're just getting bought up left and right. And I feel like they want to make people feel like you don't need a whole lot of space to survive, because they want to control all of the farming. They want to control all of the things that go into your body, because you have to remember, just like you wouldn't put, muddy water in your gas tank and expect it to run awesome, you can't put shit food in your body and expect yourself to feel great, Right. So taking away a human's ability to be sustainable for themselves, like, they don't want you to have an acre of land. They don't want communities to get together and say, hey, if we have, 50 houses on the block, why don't we get a couple of acres and plant our own foods, and we can have access to fresh ingredients, and we can, use a bartering system for certain things. They don't really want you to be resourceful at all. They want you to be bogged down, drained, depressed, and reliant on systems they have in place. They want to really get you at the point where you're relying on medicines that they're giving to get you addicted, and then they could just loop you the fuck out, But that's being in a lizard brain, is being the most advanced technological being on the planet, a human being, and allowing powers that be make you feel inadequate and like you don't fucking deserve a life. You know what I mean? Like, just being a human being is a miraculous thing. So right. For any power to be, or for anything to be able to control your emotions to the point where you feel like you're worthless and all that stuff, like, that's crazy to me. Bro, that could only be achieved if you're in the lowest possible frequency, because, and that's the problem, because it's a contagious thing. People on low frequencies don't necessarily raise other people's frequencies.
You're absolutely right. That's why meditation is so important, dude. Like, that's why meditation is so important. Like, think about this. Like, you're like the control, the lizard brain you talk about. Like, think about this. If you took like 20 minutes, 15 minutes every morning, and you drank some water, found some silence, and found your center, and know where your center is at. Have some time for yourself. Understand where your center is, where you're calm. Throughout your day, the more external things that pull at you and pick at you, it's so much easier for you to let that thing go and come back to center when you're more familiar with your center. Meditating and being familiar with yourself, instead of having your head in the tech, and like you said, just being susceptible to all the things that they keep us bogged down with and keep that lizard brain active with, all the all the porn, all the dating stuff, all the the fear and this and the politics and the news cycles and the violence and the all of it. You know what I mean? That's that's just there to do the job. You know what I mean? So if one of the best ways we can counteract that is to be active in our own mental health. Literally be active in our own mental health. Sign out from that shit for a while. You know what I'm saying? And sign into yourself for a little while. You know what I mean? And literally get some self-time. Start doing energy pluses, things like that. Go out and spend some time in a park. Take your fucking shoes off and walk around in the grass for a little while. Feel what the earth feels like again. You know what I mean? Like, do some things for yourself, because dude, I'll get stuck in this thing, you know what I mean? In this, I'm like a cog in the machine sometimes, when I get stuck in it too, but I have to remind myself to go out and, be an active participant in my own, mental and emotional health, and, practice gratitude, practice meditation. And those are the things that when I find that I do those things and I stop participating fully with the things that control us, everything that you were just talking about, is when I feel like I'm much more in tune with myself. I feel like I'm much more in tune with the moment, and I feel like like I said, I feel like things don't bother me as much, and I can find my center far more easily when I'm much more familiar with it. When I'm more grounded. When I'm more, familiar with, a calm state, and because I've practiced it. It is and by every means, when I say that, it is a practiced thing to feel that way, to be to meditate, to feel gratitude. It's really really fucking hard to think of things you're grateful for when you feel like shit, you know. So, and it's easy to get caught in the motions of all of the stuff that we were just talking about, especially when you feel bad. And when you get in that cycle, you already feel bad, you want more of it. You just get in the cycle. So, yeah, man. I mean, be an active participant and getting yourself out of that. I feel you on that, dude.
Yeah, dude, and it's almost like you're saying finding a center. It'd be
Yeah.
like taking a road trip. It'd be fun maybe to have no destination in the GPS, but it'd also be really nice to know that there's to know where you're going, and it's
Right,
like
right.
to not be lost. And I always equate it to meditation, and I'm not active. I don't want to be a hypocrite here and act like I meditate every day, but it's almost like a table having a bunch of books on it and a bunch of shit all over that's piled up over the years. You have to be able to find your zero space, your equilibrium, which is a clean table, and it's so hard to let go of all these things and like not have any thoughts circulate in your brain, because all of these thoughts that we have that could be just our lizard brain on overdrive trying to make ourselves feel better about ourselves or whatever the case may be, or to feel anxious and all these things, they're blockers of the universe giving us ultimate knowledge and ultimate consciousness. It's just a way
Agreed.
to like in the video I talk about how Graham Hancock says he doesn't believe that consciousness is actually created in the brain or is part of the brain necessarily. He believes that our brain is a receptor for consciousness, and it's almost beamed to us in a way, and it's just like
is that one of my DMT experiences that I had. It was trip, dude. I was seeing this, like, all these columns like fly by me, like I was in like this building with, like, not even a building, it was just these like thousands of columns come by me on all sides, and I tried to turn my head to see them come by on the side, and I heard this voice tell me, no, I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna show you, how I'm gonna show it to you. And it was like this, like, I gotta, like, let go of control type thing, you know what I mean?
yeah, it's almost like, what is it when man plans, God laughs? It's almost like along the same lines. We're so worried about being in control of this journey that it could be the funnest just to let it rock, and just to go with the flow and just to let the universe talk to you. It's once you start opening yourself up to signs from the universe, it's almost
That's
like
right.
it's just nonstop, because some people say, I wonder if I heard that song because I'm supposed to be in this mindset right now, and it's reminding me of this. It's like, well, just assume that it is. Assume that everything that you're interacting with on a daily basis, that most things that you see, that most people that you come in contact with are put there for a reason. And the universe is always talking to you. And it's just a way to exist on a different realm, and just it's not like just living life by the loosey goosey and stuff. It's just not being so manipulated by these other bullshit realms that have really nothing to do with true happiness. I've never heard anybody say, yeah, so and so on their deathbed said, fuck, I wish I spent 8 more hours a week in my office. Like, damn, I wish I would have liked that thing on Facebook, or I wish I would have got more likes on Facebook. It's not until you realize the potential of the life you just led do you realize how differently you probably should have looked at it, know? But and then that on that note, the other theory I talk about, and I kind of briefly mentioned it here, and the reason it is my favorite would be the Anunnaki theory. But any chance, I know the lizard people, that was something that was a little bit outside of the wheelhouse. But for the Anunnaki, is that a theory that you've ever heard or that you've ever done any kind of research into?
Well, of course, I mean, the Anunnaki, like you said, they were from, I actually didn't know too much about the history of the Anunnaki, but anybody who's ever watched Ancient Aliens has, is at least familiar with the Anunnaki. You know what I mean? So, I've seen enough about that, but strangely enough, my my stepfather, a number of years ago, he was telling us when I was probably in my early 20s, maybe late teens, and he was telling us, I'm 40, so you guys get a reference for this, so about 20 years ago. He was telling us about that he had been doing some research about Planet X, and he was actually a prepper. And he was like and he actually ended up buying a significant amount of property out in Pacific Northwest, and he was gonna put in like an underground bunker that could house up to 20 people for 2 years, fresh air, water, the whole system. And a lot of that was, as far as I can remember, like I said, it was some time ago. But as far as I can remember, some of that had to do with Planet X. And as far as I can remember, Planet X is Nibiru, correct?
So yeah, Planet X, at one point there was concern that, because the way that it works with the whole solar system is there's 9 planets in our solar system.
Sure.
Planet, and we all, like, let's say my microphone pop filter thing represents the perfect circle in which we all orbit around the sun.
Right.
The way the Planet X orbits is going to be more in a elongated
That's
oval. Right? So
it comes through once every
like 12,000 years or
12,
so.
okay, yeah.
That's about the rotation. So every 12,000 years,
that's what
this planet comes very close. So there are periods of time where if you look up at the sun or at the moon, depending on the day and the rotation of everything, you can actually see Planet X. There was worry at one point in the not too distant past that Planet X could collide with Earth and destroy us. So there was heavy fear. So it sounds like what your stepdad was referencing in regards to Planet X. I don't know if he was necessarily thinking about the Anunnaki or that was any factor in it.
I don't think that was a factor. I think
it sounds like it could be more or less Planet X is going to come collide with us, but that would even make
come close enough to have tail debris or things like that, like something along those lines. I think you were more. Yeah, I think that's more along the lines. Yeah.
And I had a conversation with a guy I've maybe had like 4 conversations, total with. I've done a few business transactions with him, and we live somewhat close. So sometimes we'll have I'll go to his house for some business and stuff like that, or to drop off some product. And we got into a super long conversation, and he had talked about, I believe it was Planet X, and it only kind of confirms to me the fact that there is a planet in our solar system that is on this very weird orbit that comes very close to Earth, close enough for it to be viable, or whatever the word is, that something on there could come to us,
Sure.
So the fact that it gets close enough to worry people, and it could almost be viewed, and it could be like, seen in the sky, that kind of validates that there's a 10th planet. So it gives like one check mark. Okay, maybe it's a little more credible now. But he was telling me that this planet, or maybe it was a comet, regardless, it doesn't even matter, but it was on course to hit the Earth, and it wasn't talked about heavily, but in like Science Weekly, in places where the truly intelligent, go to, like, that are really interested in these matters, they would see it, but the common folk wouldn't see it. And as this comet or this other thing passed by Saturn actually put out this force field around its atmosphere that put this comet off course and spun it out into another direction. So
when was this?
This maybe 10 years ago, or like I said, man, I was at this dude's house at the time. The business that I was in is selling like bongs and things of that nature. So let's just say we had a 2-hour hangout session, and maybe it was probably longer ago because I don't smoke or anything like that anymore because of my lungs. But it was a while ago, and it was like 5 to 10 years time from when we had met, maybe 2013ish. I'm trying to like remember some kind of a date, but we were getting deep. We were getting deep on this shit though, right? And he was looking it up on his phone because he kept thinking he's like, it's getting too crazy, bro. Let me show you. Like almost he needed to prove this shit to me. But
this shit was happening like with Planet X and Saturn at that time, like right at that time when you guys were talking about it, or had it just happened, or relatively in this time, or
you're not like.
Sure?
It could have been in the same time, and it might have been the same story, but I'm bringing it up almost as like an additional little bit in regards to planets, because what I took from that is Saturn must have some sort of consciousness. It must have some sort of something. And I did a video about the 10 levels of consciousness on this channel a while back. And it basically talks about the first level of consciousness would be like a plant. The plant just understands it exists. It probably doesn't know what it looks like. It couldn't see itself in the mirror if it tried. It doesn't know that around me are other things just like me. It just exists. It's 90% the environment, 10% understanding of self. And then as you get into higher levels of consciousness, we're believed to be between the third and the fourth level of consciousness. And there's some animals like orcas, or I'm sorry, like blue whales, dolphins that operate on the same, if not a higher consciousness level than us.
Interesting.
But as you get very, very high up into it, like the sixth level of consciousness would be what Buddha, Gandhi, Jesus, people that were able to manipulate matter because they had a level of consciousness that surpassed the understanding of matter that we have as human beings. They were able to actually intertwine and manipulate matter. And then as you get on to the 10th level of consciousness, it's planetary consciousness. So that was always interesting to me because it's possible that planets themselves are actually conscious. And it was kind of cool that there was this comet that was veering towards the Earth, and Saturn, maybe it's like our homie, you know, and it's like, nah, not today, you know, it's like, but that even, what kind of impact does the Earth's consciousness have on us, you know? And like when people talk about Mother Earth and things like that, there's also that influence that, and I think that's what's scary about them wanting to put all this shit in our food, because there's so much that we get from the nutrients and so much that we get from the planet that if it's tainted, that's another way to clog the pineal gland, things of that nature. And that's kind of what ultimately I wanted to get to, was the pineal gland, because that's what the Anunnaki really gave enlightenment to the Sumerians about, which was a civilization that when you talk about artwork and stuff of that nature, a lot of it is going to be from the Sumerians, where they depicted a large race of individuals that offered them things like huge lights. They depicted the solar system in perfect scale. Right. On Ancient Aliens, it talks about Zachariah Sitchin being able to translate the Sumerian tablets, and that's kind of where the Anunnaki theory stems from a little bit. And
didn't Anunnaki create humans as slaves or to work for them at first? Wasn't that the initial idea?
Yeah. So the going in like the details of it. So the Anunnaki from the 10th planet, they came here to mine gold. And they brought with them their own slave race called the Inkies. And maybe over the course of a couple thousands of years, the Inky became aware and realized that they were being used as slaves. They tried to revolt against the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki wasn't having it. So they just completely eliminated the Inky. So in order to continue to have some kind of a slave race, they wanted to engineer a new species, and they wanted to keep it on the planet. You know, they didn't have other resources to go outside of the planet, I guess, at that point. So they were mixing up all kinds of different animals. Nothing presented itself as something that would work. And they were trying to avoid heavily introducing their own bloodline into this species. However, it didn't seem like it would happen without doing it. So they took the DNA of a chimpanzee and their own DNA, and, you know, combined it. And that's where Homo sapiens came from. And another tie in that you can say to the Bible, and that's why the Anunnaki and the Bible always kind of have these similarities I reference to each other, because in the Bible it says God created us in his own image, or in their own image, really depending on the translation that you read. Some say it says God created us in their own image, but it's exactly how it's depicted in the Anunnaki, because from their own image, from their own DNA, they created us. So that's how we can see God in ourselves, because we're made in his image, or their image. So that was always an interesting parallel to me, because the story of our creation, I don't believe that we just evolved, you know, from snakes or from fish or anything like that. It feels more complicated than that to me, or more simple, actually, you could say. But so yeah, the Anunnaki created human beings. And then as time progressed, it wasn't a matter of human beings becoming too aware, but the Anunnaki were getting sexually attracted to the human beings, or the Homo sapiens. So they started intermingling with them and created this. Ultimately, that would be the Royal Bloodline. So this hybrid. And they had Anunnaki. So there's like a whole system, you know. They had almost like a president Anunnaki. They had scientist Anunnaki. They had their committees.
So how did these? So how does this royal bloodline? How do they? You know, how does that go into the reptilians?
So the royal bloodline concept is in the reptilians is any of them are a part of the royal bloodline. So these reptilian shapeshifters are remnants of a royal bloodline from this reptilian race that ruled the planet for years and years and years. And
And did
now
the
they just
Anunnaki
present.
create them?
That's why I say it's different stories with the same underlying ideas. I mean, it could be at one point that there was a force of good and there was a force of evil on this planet, or you know, but to me, it's all representative of this royal bloodline that is still on the planet today.
Sure.
That still somehow has an impact on society, and there could be multiples. Like I don't know that we're limited to having one royal bloodline exist on the planet right now. And that's the interesting fact to me is there could be Anunnaki royal bloodline that still exists that's trying to enlighten us, and they could be infiltrating us just like the reptilians could be infiltrating us through the media and through through politics and through world leaders. The Anunnaki could be doing the same thing, but in a kind of more subtle way. Maybe they're just influencing thoughts and they're cultivating individuals that are able to spread enlightenment because
Gotcha.
as human beings, most of us get the most from other human beings.
Sure.
And so that's maybe how I look at it, in a sense where the Anunnakis, they represent more or less human beings being able to connect with our pineal glands. That's why, and I've tried to say it a couple of times and I just keep losing it, but in the Sumerian art, they depict the pineal gland. They have images of the solar system in perfect scale. And for a civilization that far back to even be thinking about the pineal gland, when the pineal gland is believed to be what connects us with collective consciousness. That's kind of like our ultimate key to the universe. And even having fluoride in the water is something that blocks that. A lot of food blocks your pineal gland.
Sure.
There's chemicals that they put in food like aspartame that are horrible for your brain. So, that's why when you take DMT or when you take ayahuasca, it releases dimethyltryptamine, which is believed to be excreted or produced in your pineal gland, and you get almost the same sensation that you would get upon death because your brain or your pineal gland releases the same kind of DMT when you die as you get when you get that high off smoking it or whatnot. But imagine if we had no kind of clutter or no kind of pollution in our pineal gland. What kind of consciousness would we be able to have here? So that I look at the Anunnaki as trying to infiltrate our pineal gland, right? They're trying to use that receptor and allow us to tap in, but the lizard people or that power that be is trying to keep us bogged down in the lower portions of our brain and just keep us kind of asleep, and it's kind of crazy to me that it's they're creating a new movement of like fake woke, or like, have you heard of woke culture? It's almost ignorance masquerading as intelligence for the masses.
Sure.
There's nothing really woke
stated.
about the majority of woke culture. Woke culture is finding new ways to divide us.
Agreed.
It's like, who gives a fuck what you want to do, who you want to be with, what you look like, all of these things. Because at the end of the day, we're all on this planet together. We're all inhabiting the same space, and the end goal should be for us to live an enjoyable, happy life. So
100%.
why bog your mind down all day with reasons to be offended about what other people are saying? And it's like, to hate on somebody else because of a belief system or to argue. Like, no one can have a good debate anymore. It's like, because people identify with their opinions so much that the level of people getting offended is on a whole different level now, dude. Like, there's certain things I won't even talk about on a live or anything because it's, as much as I don't want to subject myself to this infrastructure of being worried about talking about certain things, I also think it's important that what I am able to talk about gets out there, and it doesn't get limited because I wanted to say 5 minutes about a topic that I already knew was going to get me fucked over on it, or like get my shit taken down. But that's like the scariest part to me, is seeing that there's this movement to make people feel like they're awake and they're woke, and like conspiracy theories have never been so accepted. It's very like fucking weird, man. What are your thoughts on that?
Listen to what you just said. Like take that in, just marinate in that for a minute. You said that whether it's because of you feel that maybe there's some potential censorship, or because you might get, for lack of a better term, canceled. You don't want to have to deal with the ramifications of people getting so angry with you that you literally don't feel that you have the option to speak your mind freely. Just think about that for a second. Like,
No, and I mean, it's a crazy idea. I mean, if we were all at the park right now and we were just on microphones and the goal was just to have a conversation between us, it would be unlimited. But it's just, it's we're living in a world that's getting so censored that like
that's
this,
what I'm saying.
we're supposed to
And
be on the
so,
freest
and we're
network.
So sensitive.
Yeah.
And and the world is so sensitive and censored, and you have to that's how society has literally, just ingrained it into us, especially over the last 5 years or so, 6 years or so. It's just been like, you don't say, this or else. You don't say this or else. You don't say this or else. And it's like, when did that become a thing where everybody started capitulating to that bullshit, that garbage? It's like, dude, speak your mind. Speak your mind, say what you're going to say, dude. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I'm not saying this at you. I'm just saying for people in general. It's like, like everything that's thrown at us, going back to all the stuff that we're, bogged down with by, the elite, those trying to control us and shit. It's like, dude, we're, at each other's throats all the time or whatever it is, So, I don't know, man. It's crazy, bro.
It is crazy, dude. And I look at things like if you were to go based off of the news, you would imagine that when you walk outside, everyone hates each other.
But when you go out, the
You
social
know?
temperature is warm, bro. Talk to people, dude. You'll find that people are like completely with it. You know what I mean? They want to have a conversation,
Yeah, dude. And like even as far as the ways in which, and kind of going back to like the whole idea of the lizard brain and trying ways to divide and conquer us, I mean, I feel like in my personal experience, I don't see that much hatred going on in the world, or at least in my, and some people say, well, yeah, it's because you have your own experience, but I think the majority of us are getting past it. And it seems obvious because even when it comes to like the cancel culture that's going on right now, it's like what are the biggest things that can get you canceled right now? The majority of it is something racist. If you do something racist, it's like, damn, dude, good luck. You're gonna get fucking. That's it. And it depends though on what you're being racist about. Like I think there's certain races you could joke about and you can make fun of because of whatever, but there's certain races that it strikes such a chord in society and such a chord in areas of our history that is used to weaponize against us. Because when I'm out there, a lot of people, they don't even think about these things, or they're trying to evolve society and not be stuck in our history and stuck in our past and move forward. But to see them weaponize racism and try to make people like Joe Rogan, who I don't know, I didn't view him as a racist because of what I saw. I think it's almost like crazy to think that you would have an intellectual conversation about a word and not use the word or in context. And I'm not going to say it and all that stuff, but they're making people just ultra sensitive and feel like everybody's a racist, and it's very dangerous. You know what I mean? Because then we start generalizing, and it's like we start becoming more prejudiced of each other. Well, and I feel like we're starting to get like looser and be more accepting, but the powers that be are trying to make us ultra prejudice. That's what I see happening.
Of course. Well, they've always done that. They've always done that. They've always tried to pit people against each other however they can. Literally just however they can. Race, sex, religion, fucking, it doesn't matter.
I haven't heard religion in a while. I haven't seen them use religion in at least 6 months. It's been
6 months, right? It's a long time, apparently. Yeah.
But dude, even like the. Go ahead.
I was going to say it doesn't even have to be racist. It can just be perceived as racist. And you can be canceled. You can be done. You know what I mean? Somebody can just say you said something and you didn't even have to say something. Somebody can just say you said something and you're done. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, hey, and obviously if you're actually racist and shit, like, fucking good luck. You know what I'm saying? You fucking probably deserve to get canceled. You know what I'm saying? But my point is that it, like, you know what I mean? Like, that's a really touchy subject. And to be honest with you, if you keep using it so much, if somebody keeps, you know, saying everything is racist or whatever, like, I think that loses it loses its weight.
Well,
It's like,
I think if anything,
we want to make sure that we're calling it,
Just-
you know, the right people who are racist. You know what I'm saying?
and it kind of played, I don't know if it would be playing devil's advocate or just a different way of looking at what you just said in regards to the word holding more weight. I think what's happening right now is our threshold of what is racist is being lowered to a point where
Good
if
point.
you say
That's a really good point.
anything negative, if I say that black person over there or that Chinese person over there, in just a way that I don't know, maybe there's a better way to say it, but just in those kind of terms, people are going to say, man, that's racist. Or like at some point that's going to be racist.
It can be perceived as racist.
And
It could be, just depends
so-
on who's around and who's feeling, you know, offended at the moment.
And so it's like the lower the threshold is for what's considered a racist, the easier it is to get upset, the easier it is to get offended. So it's almost like the more weight the word holds, because it could be applied to 10 times more individuals now. Because at one point being a racist was feeling like another race wasn't worthy of breathing the same air as you. Where now being racist could be like joking about someone's ethnicity. It's like, I don't think a joke should be viewed as racist, and I don't think people, I just don't see it like that. I don't want to get too deeper into it, but like, that's a scary thing to me. It's that easy to pin something like racism on another individual and for people to actually believe it, because that should hold a lot of weight, like you're saying, you know.
It does, dude. It does.
But I mean, when the real issues, you know, we got like Jeffrey Epstein going on, and I feel like that's just buried in like 3 days, dude.
Right.
You know, and it's like,
bro, dude. Yeah, I mean, I don't even want to say. I mean, I feel like if I like say anything about that on here, like your shit might just get shut off. So, you know, they sealed those files. You know that, right? Like after that Ghislaine Maxwell trial, you know they sealed those files.
yeah,
right?
because
So
it was a
nobody
federal
gets to
trial.
see- so nobody gets to see who went on those. Nobody gets to see those flight logs. Nobody gets to see who went there. Nobody gets to see nothing. We don't get to see. As a member of the public, I would like to know that I'm not voting for somebody who's on those flight logs, to be completely honest with you, bro.
It's kind of like George Carlin, man. He says, there's a club, and you ain't a part of
You
it.
ain't part of it, bro. Exactly.
And,
right, bro.
and so just like, okay, it's almost, you know, me and you do, we're baseline human beings, you know, like we don't run countries, or we're not politicians, and we're not actively seeking
Quintessential average Joe, as it were.
in the most positive way, because we're not individuals that are looking to create constructs to control other individuals. We want to just
not.
be a part of the experience and see how fluid we could be within, you know, the experience.
Bro, I want to bring positivity to the experience.
Yeah,
all
dude.
around me, bro. for sure.
So we have our own like level of existence. You know, we have our conspiracy theories. We have our realm. We have, you know, these lizard people and these Anunnakis and all this shit. But when it gets to the point of being elite, because if there's really nothing more out there than what we're experiencing, and you get to that level of eliteness, I don't know, man. Maybe at some point someone had to make up some crazy shit that they all believe in. You know, like you're talking like the whole Bilderbergs or the whole whatever you're saying, but like, what is the stuff that the elite believe? Like, what do they believe in? And is there a consensus amongst the elite what the reality of this existence is? You know, and like, what are they worshiping? And what role does things like the whole Epstein stuff that was going on? That's a lot of blackmail, of course, and that's a lot of money being moved. But there's certain practices that seem to be pretty rampant among a lot of these elite societies and a lot of these weird fucking individuals.
Sure,
It's like, so what realm are they in? You know, like what conspiracy do they think? And like,
Bro,
what is
like,
the reality
that
they...
know? A lot of these motherfuckers know. Bro, Joe Rogan said one time, you remember he used to have that show on like the Sci-Fi Channel or some shit like that? It was like a Truth or something. I can't remember what it was. It was Fact or Fiction or some shit like that. And he talked about all kinds of conspiracy theories. Like that's what the show was about, right? And I remember on one episode of that show, he said, I remember, maybe it was his show, maybe it was his podcast, but I remember him saying at one point, I'm paraphrasing here, something or other. He said, he like looked into the camera or something like to this effect, and he was like talking about the government. He's like, if you guys ever tell me the truth about this shit, I will fucking lie to everyone. You know what I'm saying? Like he said, "Hey, tell me the truth, and I'll lie to everybody." And he's like, "As long as I know, you let me in on that knowledge, and I'll lie to everybody." So these elites, bro, they probably know the truth, dude. They're probably not. They're probably not in the They're probably not in the shadows on a lot of the stuff we're talking about, bro.
And I guess that's like, okay, so what's the threshold of the elite?
Oh, by the way, after Joe Rogan said that, not long after he said that, he was one of the biggest proponents for the moon landing being fake, by the way, for years. And all of a sudden, right after he said that, like a year or so after he said that, he was like, "Oh yeah, the moon landing was real. I was wrong." Blah blah blah. Like I was like, "Oh fucking, I don't know, bro. I remember you saying you'd lie to everybody about a year ago if they told you some shit, dude. Like, you know what I mean?" So
Yeah, like he kind of went from all of the standard reasons why most people think that the moon landing was bullshit. Like, I think Stanley Kubrick is a great. A matter of fact, a lot of even David Icke, the guy that pretty much popularized the lizard people theory.
sure,
He talks about how Stanley Kubrick is. He was introduced into the circle. He's not one of them, but he's about as close as it humanly gets, and he was recruited by them to use his talent, which would be filmmaking and storytelling. And he, in Eyes Wide Shut, which ironically, I don't think I've ever seen that movie,
I
but
haven't either.
Eyes Wide Shut depicts a little bit of the Hollywood industry, because even Hollywood, like the holly tree is a tree that they used to take the wood from and make magical wands. That's what, and like do curses and things like that. So that's why it's Hollywood and Hollywood land and like the magical land and all this fucking weird shit. But he talks about how Eyes Wide Shut is essentially, when it first was sent over to the editing room, it was way too graphic, blood everywhere. Like the scenes were too gnarly. They had to tone it down. So what you see is the mildest possible version of what Stanley Kubrick was trying to convey is what really happens at these like elite parties, you know?
Really?
And then in The Shining, he gave all these. There's a documentary, and I'm going to be wrong about it, but it wouldn't be hard to Google it. It's called like Room 138 or something like that.
237 or something.
Or Room
like
237.
Yeah,
It's
it was
room
on Netflix for a while, yeah.
room 3 numbers, you know, but but it basically it's almost just like the most dope YouTube video about like secrets revealed, you know.
Cool,
it talks about how even, you know, a book on the desk when they walk into the reception, and like there's so many little clues that he gives that he helped create the moon landing.
Interesting.
You know what I mean? But and then Stanley Kubrick, obviously, you know, he's no longer with us, but there's a lot of clues within his films. And I feel like with Joe Rogan, he never let the scientific aspects of it get in the way of what he was feeling as a gut feeling that the moon landing was bullshit. It was always this other evidence. And now his whole purpose behind not believing it is because he doesn't know the science. It's like the science was never a factor in all the millions of reasons why you thought it was bullshit. And now, like, you let your non-understanding of shit that most people couldn't even explain to you without you knowing if they're telling you the truth or not, you know, like explaining space travel is pretty fucking complex, and none of us have been there except for the ones that have, that or claim to have. So that was always weird to me. You're right. So I mean, maybe someone did tell me, but what is like the threshold? Like what level of elite do you have to be to know this shit? You know
That's
what I mean?
I don't know. I mean, do you have to be like Scientologist or what? I mean,
Because whoever Joe Rogan had on a TV show, I can't imagine they were the ones, but they must have known that Joe Rogan has the ability to suck all these fucking people in, you know, like almost let's get them with Joe Rogan talking about the moon. Let's get their brain to be a little clayish and make Joe Rogan to be the man of the century. And like, he's almost the epitome of like the awoken human being at this point, you know, the cool guy. And then once he starts shifting his opinion, maybe it's almost like the people that would have continued thinking down that path, Joe Rogan could like reel them back in, you know,
right.
like
Especially anyone with any clout and any power.
Yeah, dude. So I don't know. I mean, that's actually how I got into a lot of conspiracy theories, at least in the last like 5 years or so. I don't listen to a whole lot of Joe Rogan anymore, but when they were all on YouTube all the time, you know.
For sure.
I drive
watching a lot of them.
I drive 6 hours a day sometimes, so it wasn't that hard to knock out a couple of Joe Rogan podcasts.
Yeah, there were some good ones with Bob Lazar and, you know, Graham Norton and a bunch of them. You know, I mean, I've seen some good ones.
Yeah, and just to throw out there, Donna Kay in the comments, she is saying that the Anunnaki are the Nephilim, the fallen angels written about in the Bible. So that is a very good little correlation, Don. Okay, I believe in the Bible it actually refers to them as the Anakins or the Ananikins or something where like the
Interesting.
lettering is very close to Anunnaki, because Anunnaki in itself means the enlightened ones. So it's one of those terms where it isn't necessarily unique to the theory. You know, it's a universal term or made from a couple of different words that mean shit. But and then it says Joe Rogan is a disinformation agent. I don't know. I mean, maybe
Controlled
according.
opposition.
Who else would you say that there's anyone else that you feel might be a controlled opposition or anyone that feels like is
Neil deGrasse Tyson. I think he's the most full of shit motherfucker out there, dude.
or Bill Nye?
Of course.
Dude, you
Bill
know,
Nye, the science guy. He's not an actual scientist, is he? Something else.
no, he's an
Something
actor,
else.
but his whole thing was like he's Bill. I mean, dude, none of the shit he does is like ultra scientific. It's like if you
Right.
take bleach and you put it in soda, it's a volcano, and it's like he's giving you very like elementary science. But I guess he was just an actor, and they liked the part, and then now he represents a scientist.
Right.
But someone's saying Russell Brand. I don't know about Russell Brand. Russell Brand seems like an all right dude. He seems to be very subjective and very like open to being wrong with things. And I feel like Russell Brand definitely enjoys talking and listening to himself talk. But I don't know if he's necessarily a shill per se. But
Yeah, I think he's too flexible. I think he's just too flexible. He was, too far left, and then, and then he's, been kind of more center, lately, center right lately, I guess. And it's just, I just feel like he's too flexible to be a shill. You know what I mean? He's too like unpredictable to say like one. He's just, one thing, one way or one thing another. You know what I mean? For me, but I mean, anything's possible. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's easier to be a shill, especially when you're relatable. So who, fuck knows,
and it also boils down to like I try as much as I can to not involve myself with anything on Instagram. You know, if there's a fucking post and it's people talking about gas prices, I don't want to talk about how Biden did X, Y, and Z, and maybe
I don't
that's
do political shit.
and maybe
Yeah.
that's why. But one day,
I stick with it, yeah.
one day it was someone that pretty much said that the president is doing all that they can, and if you can't see that, then you must be brainwashed and all this shit. And all I did is I said, oh, you should Google this. You know, you just Google it and just see where it leads you to if you allow yourself to do that. Because I'm not trying to argue with somebody just blatantly, but I would like to open up dialogue. I think that we live in a world where not
Sure.
enough dialogue is being
Civil
opened up.
discourse is incredibly important.
Right? So the person just wrote back to me that I'm an idiot.
I knew it.
And,
I
and,
just said, did you get attacked?
and
Of
and
course
they said that
did.
you must watch Fox News all day, every day. And then so I try to be
Oh,
polite,
so
man, because I guess I forget that these are probably like 18-year-old people that are just trying to get people to look at their profiles. But which it was. I'm not trying to generalize all these people, but that's what this one was.
Sure.
And so I put, okay, where do you recommend I get my news?
Good
And
question.
and then they wrote back, not on TV. And at that point, what else am I going to say? Because I literally, the only thing I actually said was Google this. So I'm already working within their confines. I'm not telling them to go watch TV. I'm telling them to look on the medium in which they're recommending I look on. And it's like, dude, people are just so delusional, man.
Yeah, I
And
know.
it's
It's a tribalism, dude. You get stuck in this thing, and until until you, I won't say everybody, but until once a lot of people experience something real in their lives that's different than the ideal that they have in their head. Once that happens to a lot of people, they go, "Oh shit! Well, shit. Maybe I think differently about that thing." You know what I mean? Now, you know what I mean? Like it didn't happen to me until I was in my late 20s, maybe 27, 28. You know what I mean? And things I opened a business. As soon as I started owning a business and I started understanding what the state does to you as far as regulations and taxes and things like that. Oh, bro, it was I opened my eyes. I stopped listening to The Daily Show, which was where I was getting my, 25, I didn't care, you know what I mean? I didn't care about what was actually happening. CNN, Daily Show, things like that, and it's like, and then I started realizing, oh, yeah, that they're lying to me about all kinds of shit, you know what I'm saying? Like, so, very similarly to what we see today anyway.
Yeah, and I guess it also boils down to like they're lying to you,
I'm
but
sorry. I'm just kidding. The media is super trustworthy.
well, I mean, even the term news, man, it trips me out because one day I was thinking, what the fuck does the term news mean? You know, like there's Channel 5 News,
Sure.
Channel 11 News. Like, so what is, by definition, the term news mean? Does it mean stating factual information, you know, on television? Like, is it information that's been properly vetted and given to individuals to knowledge, whatever?
As long
And
as it upholds the right narrative, it's news.
yeah, so like what I'm just gonna Google this real quick because I don't want to guess on this, but it's actually crazy what the actual like definition for. And here I'm having a hard time talking and Google at the same time.
It's all right, dude. Take
News
your time,
mean, but the term news, it just is newly received or noteworthy information, especially about recent or important events.
bro. Okay.
Information not previously known to someone. So what you're saying is the news is just my way of giving you information that I feel is noteworthy about a recent event that maybe you didn't know before. So the news isn't actually meant to be factual.
Doesn't have to
you
be
know,
true.
like
Doesn't need
so,
to be accurate.
and I think there should almost be a disclaimer before every news show ever that the term like this is information that we feel is important to share with you based off of our opinion and our resources and like our sources, because I think that's what they have to do. But
Good point.
people really just take it as like if it's on the news, it's real. I think that we're getting away from that a little
Sure
bit.
enough.
But it's almost scary because now we're in a situation where and there was a KGB defector in the 80s that talked about the destabilization of countries and how Russia was doing it. And there's like 5 or 6 steps, and some of the steps take 20 years because it has to go through a few generations.
Yeah, his name was Yuri. As far as I can remember, I think it was Yuri Brezmanov or Brezmanov.
Dude,
Something along those lines.
that seems good to me, bro. Like Yuri for sure. The last name was like what you're saying, like that vibe, like those letters at least. You know, like
I'm pretty sure.
there was a B and a Z and a V, bro. Like yeah, that was it. But he
I'm
talks.
only a racist against Russians. I got his name wrong. I'm sorry.
Hey, I mean, but so he talks about the demoralization of a country, the destabilization, and he says the ultimate goal is for individuals to be presented factual information and still deny that it's true, and have no way of even solidifying the truth to themselves. They could be presented information from a million different angles and still find nothing to be true, and that's the most dangerous part because that just means that everything is just as easily manipulated as ever because what's true at that point? Everything is kind of bullshit.
Do you think we're there?
I think that I think we're there to the degree where people seem to believe it's hard to say. It's like maybe we are there because what do I say? Like people are believing things that aren't true. You know, because they're saying the same thing about me.
They're a lot less likely to have civil discourse, as we were talking about earlier. They're a lot less like you said. Instead of you hit that guy on Instagram and said Google this thing, you didn't get a conversation back. You got a fuck you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess I'm trying to think of how we're not currently in that situation, but it seems like we're about as close as we've ever been because there's no reliable source that I could present to somebody that disagrees with me that would make them reconsider their stance, you know? And there's a quote, it's by one of Socrates or Aristotle, but it's a wise man can entertain the wrong answer and learn from it, where the fool won't even learn anything from the right answer. You know, like being able to entertain.
That's a great quote.
Yeah, it's like being able to entertain a topic that I have no belief in, but I can see why it's interesting and I can learn something from it. Just like with the conspiracies. Do I think there's lizard people that actually are lizards? No, but like, what is something that if I look deep enough in it,
I'm just kidding.
but as I look into it, why is this something that it feels important to anybody? Like, what is the universal strand that this is plucking just a little bit, you know? And it's the force is controlling us, and there's enough little dots to connect where you can make it very interesting enough. And at the end of the day, who knows who's right? Sure. Someone's right. That's the scariest part. And it's like, maybe it is lizards. I don't fucking know.
What if they are exactly? What if they are really like reptilians out there, like controlling like the fractal light that we see around them to make them look like humans? And hey, bro, it's You know, and I will say I like that too. I like being able to have an open mind for this type of conversation because, and you know what? Something I really enjoyed lately is some of the people might enjoy this if they haven't seen it. Was they did this YouTuber named Wendigoon did this deep dive into the conspiracy theory iceberg, which was pretty fun, which was pretty cool series of videos. You might want to check that out actually.
It sounds familiar, like title wise. Like I've definitely seen it recommended to me, but I'll click on it next time for sure.
Yeah, check it out, man. But yeah, man, who's to say? You're right. We don't know. You know, we don't know for sure. You know what I mean? But I think you make a really good point. I think that there is something to be learned. From all of this. You know what I mean? And I mean, we can obviously see that there's powers that be trying to control, trying to manipulate, trying to keep us in fear, keep us divided. Keep us at each other's at odds. But I mean, yeah, I mean, who's to say if it's what it is, So
Yeah, and
I don't
mean,
know, but hopefully, if there is something that's trying to divide us, hopefully there is an equally opposing force out there trying to help us become enlightened, like you said. So I'd actually like to think that actually, if there was something working against us, it might be something working for us.
I mean, there has to be because I think it'd be a lot easier to submit to the evil ways. You know what I mean?
Right.
I think, but on all those, there's a comment here about basically people keep correlating the Anunnaki to the Nephilim and all of that. So I think there's a lot more ties than even I myself have really thought about in regards to that conspiracy theory.
Interesting.
But yeah, man. I mean, as far as like what we're saying, to me, it's all a matter of if you start looking through life or this experience from the lens of there's something trying to control you or there's powers that be. It should just start making you ask questions like, well, why would they want to do that? And what would the motive be? It's not about who's doing it, what's doing it. It's just why would there even be something in play to try to control you? Like, what is it? What is the benefit to anything to try to control you? And what would their motive be? And is it something that you have to take part in? Like. Right. You don't have to watch TV. You don't have to watch the news. Whatever they're lying to you about. It doesn't even matter if you knew the truth about it because it might not even be fucking real. So it's like they could make up an issue that has no base reality happening and then just create a division of people that either are for or against whatever they're presenting to you. So there's no truth when it's made up in general,
Right.
and I mean, so that's it. All even goes back through time. It's who is the dude Timothy Lear that said drop acid and like drop out and just totally disconnect from society and like the bullshit and all that. It seems to be something that throughout time continues to come back as like a counterculture, and I think that's why
Absolutely.
it's great that right now people are looking at, I think weed is being kind of romanticized is a lot. I hope people use it the way that it's always been for me. THC is a way for me to feel more one with my existence and peaceful and all of that. And it doesn't just get into some designer shit, but even with the legalization of mushrooms, I hope that this really opens the doors for a lot of people that may have been hesitant to trying some things to have these kind of experiences. Because it's definitely eye-openers, man. Any psychedelic experience I've ever had has made me look at the world a lot differently. It just lets you know there's more out there. And if there's more out there,
100%.
then you're not trapped in what you see every day. There's more out there.
Agreed.
But, yeah, man, I just I hope that we keep moving in that direction. And that would be rad. And I kind of lost where I was going. I started talking about mushrooms. I'm actually wearing today, just real quick, dude.
Nice, I love it, dude.
I'm a fun guy. Shout out to my sister-in-law Jeannie for getting me the shirt.
I just took my parents out some mushrooms. They haven't done mushrooms in like 10, 20 years, and they're like around 70 years old. And I just took my parents out some mushrooms out to their ranch out there in Pacific Northwest and dropped them off some mushrooms. So I don't know if they've done them yet, if they've eaten them yet, but I'm sure they'll let me know.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah,
but,
hey, it's a phenomenal experience. I mean, it can be anyway. I mean, bad trips happen, but I mean, becoming, allowing yourself to let go in that manner is something else.
I mean, it's even a bad trip. A bad trip is just the perception that was a negative experience because you weren't able to decipher the experience.
Dude, agreed,
yeah.
Bro. I haven't been dead in the middle of a bad trip and it become a good trip. because of one thing. Because one thing happened and it changed my perception and changed my perspective. It happened twice. Once on acid, once on DMT.
Yeah, hey, dude. I mean, it's the truth, and I think it makes me, and that's kind of like tying it all in together, and to wrap up a little bit here is,
Yeah.
that's why it's so important for me to spread information about conspiracies, to always try to connect dots, to try to let people see. It don't matter exactly. It doesn't matter the song we're singing. The lyrics are always leaning towards like trying to find ultimate truth. Start to question things about that truth and try to live more within it. And it's exciting to me because we talk about just how crazy things are getting and how the information is being so scrambled and all of that. But at the same time, that the powers of evil are most impactful when the powers of good are trying really hard. Do you know what I'm saying? And good usually will win over evil historically. But the fact that we're having legalizations, because back in the 70s, it was a lot of these things were illegal, but now we're looking to legalize, decriminalize psychedelics. It feels like there is a wave of true enlightenment upon us, as long as it doesn't get corporalized, whatever the word is, and it gets weaponized,
Sure.
If we don't go into the metaverse before the actual universe presents options that everyone enjoys and could appreciate. But it seems like they're trying so hard to turn us into these robots at a time when we're getting very close to a point in reality where we could have certain freedoms that allow us enlightenment. And I mean, just to be able to, people are more open to conspiracies now. Like, conversations about conspiracies have never been easier to have with anybody. When the whole Will Smith thing happened, you could almost say a conspiracy about it to anybody, and they would say that's possible. So like, people are getting more and more open to the idea that everything is kind of bullshit.
Right.
And like, people that never would have tried psychedelics are now trying them. So I have faith that we're moving in an awesome fucking direction. And then
I think so too.
They're trying as hard as they can right now to just make people hate each other. And if we could just get past that and really fucking look at it through a lens that they're not projecting onto us, we might be okay here.
You're right, man. And if I could just like add to what you just said too, like, for what it's worth, whatever they're pushing on us, whatever kind of division and fear and bullshit that they're pushing on us, I think like one of the biggest tools, resources we have, like, are each other. Like, if we just like reached out to each other more, communicated with each other more, I mean like actually like reached out, like call somebody, talk to somebody. If you have a question, don't Google it. Call somebody that knows about that subject and talk to them about it. Ask them, hey, you're a fisherman. Tell me about it. Or you're a blah, you make this, or call some people, man. Like, reconnect like with people. I feel like that is one of the best ways we can break out of this like bubble of negativity that they, for lack of a better term, are doing their best to keep us in, or doing their best to kind of bring us down, or keep us using our reptilian brains, so to speak. You know what I mean? So I feel like one of the best ways we could do that, avoid that, one of the best ways we could counter that is just, like I said, just kind of just getting back in touch with each other, just talking to your neighbors, talking to your family, talking to your friends. Dude, I guarantee you that there's people out there right now that have been so inundated with their own social media and their job and their this and their video games and their that they haven't even talked to their mom or their brother or their sister or whatever. They spend less time with their wives or their husbands or whatever, because they're so, tech has got them, or something has got them so worked up on politics that they can't stop watching CNN or whatever it is. Like, I urge you guys to shut that shit off and just reconnect with your people, just reconnect with, each other. That's one of the best things we can do. And that's one of the biggest strengths we have in general. If things do get worse, is, the connections we have with each other. So I don't know.
That's true, man. I mean, I don't know how some people have 5,000 friends on Facebook and never felt more alone in their life, dude. Yep. I remember back before I had a cell phone, I communicated with people in a whole different way. But now it's so easy to be nonchalant in ways of communicating with each other, like one letter text. And it's almost the vibe like these days calling somebody is bugging them. you know, and there's this need to have there's a need to have a million connections when I think there's a study that shows you can only have, I mean, you can have a lot of associates in life, and as you get older, you know, you can have different kinds of relationships, but you can't maintain more than like 10 super important relationships. You know what I mean? And like,
I understand that.
And so like, I think it's just a matter of, like you're saying, try to connect with anybody, but find just like a core group of solid people, whether it be family, close friends, and like dedicate a good portion of your time to them, you know, and like really build with each other, and just I don't know. It's crazy to me that
No, you're making a good point, dude.
I have like more
Absolutely.
contacts at my fingertips than I've ever had in my life, and I probably communicate with people littler than I ever have on certain days. You know what I mean? It's like it's all weird, but nah, man, all that stuff was awesome, dude. I appreciate you being
I had a
on
great time, man. Thanks
the
for having
live.
me on, man.
No, of course, dude. I'm glad we were able to talk about music. I'm super stoked for all the lives that you're doing.
Absolutely.
I'll go ahead, once I post this video, I'll put links to your channel.
Thanks, bro.
I'm glad we were able to get some conspiracy talking. I think ultimately it all just to summarize for everyone in here, it all boils down to just the powers that be. Don't let them get to you. You know what I mean? Like, open up, use that pineal gland, you know, spread some positivity, spread some love and happiness with each other.
100%.
Because as somebody said earlier that I felt like was a really potent way to put it when we're talking about good and evil is Larson family says we are the good force. So as you're saying, we're all beacons of positivity. Right. And if we're not
good force.
If we're not actively lighting our candles, we ain't shining. So let's make sure that we're all shining together, guys. On that note, Eddie, again, dude, I appreciate you, dude. I can't wait for the next time. And to everyone in the live, appreciate you guys being here. For everyone that's watching this after it's up, make sure to go watch the other video about lizard people. Go check out Eddie, and have a great rest of your day.
Take care, guys.
Peace.